What's good, all you cyberpunks and retro nerds out there? It's your host, Tommy the Hammer. Excuse me a minute, guys. Oh, yeah. That's much better. How y'all motherfuckers doing? Good, I hope. Me, myself? I've been better. But then again, I'm sure a lot of motherfuckers have been better in 2020. This has been a shit-tastic year. So it's like, join the fucking club, right, Tom? I thought we would check out something a little more art house and cerebral. I'm talking about the Park Chan-wook film, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. You guys know this routine. Check out the trailer, peep that shit. When you guys get back, y'all motherfucks are gonna know my opinione on Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. What am I fucking doing? Guys, first and foremost, I just want to say that the movie Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is definitely not an easy film to get through. It's emotional. There's a lot of dramatic elements, a lot of tragic elements, a lot of violence. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is an interesting experience. I thought this was a great movie, and revisiting it gave me an entirely new appreciation for the film, which kind of brings me to another element to this review that I want to talk about. The Tartan Asian Extreme films that were being released here in America, at least in the early to mid 2000s, they were prolific for a reason. We weren't getting a lot of interesting movies dropped in American movie theaters during that era, and you would walk into, movie rental places like Blockbuster and media outlets like Coconuts, which eventually became FYE, and you would see movies like this sitting on the shelf and go, oh man, something international, I should check it out. And that's exactly what I did. I saw these Asian movies being released here in the States, and I thought I would check them out. Well, coming from a younger person's perspective during that era, I found that I only gravitated towards the movies that were all about shock and awe. Things that kind of grabbed you by the cojones immediately. A similar situation I had back in the day was for Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer. When I first saw that movie, I was nonplussed, and it wasn't until I saw his film Audition that I realized, oh man, this guy truly knows what he's doing as a director. And then I revisited Ichi the Killer and found it to be a really good movie. And that's exactly the same situation for Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. I saw Old Boy, thought it was really good, followed it up with this movie, and thought it wasn't as good. But here I am, 2020, revisiting the film, and I gotta say, this is a powerful movie. The beginning of the film is interesting. You've got this character named Ryu who's kind of seen as a dolt. A lot of the people in the film treat him like he's a fucking moron, but in actuality, he's just deaf. Everyone in this movie treats him like trash. Well, Ryu's sister, she's got kidney failure, and basically the whole movie is him trying to gain money to get an organ transplant for his sister. And that's the story. That's where we start. And it's a little hard to watch. There's a lot of commentary about, the healthcare system. There's a lot of commentary about debt and economic woes. And there's a lot of commentary about what people will do for the ones that they love. And I I think it's funny that a lot of the movies that I've been, touching on this month are, especially the dramatic ones, they all seem to be coming from this angle of financial hardship. Well, I assure you guys, that's not intentional. I'm not actively seeking out these movies because of that similar theme. The beginning of the film really sets the stage, and then there's like this kidnapping element that comes along, and it's quite comical and goofy. And, at first when you're watching it, you're like, okay, these scenes are kind of meandering along. What's going on here? And then the tragedy unfolds. The unexpected element kind of blindsides you out of nowhere. You have a lot of plot twists. You have a lot of characters that are suffering, and the actors really turn in amazing performances. I mean, there are hell of a performances in this movie that even had me choked up. I was like, my God, this is just horrifying to watch. And then the last half of the film is pure revenge. It's these characters, seemingly uncommon, from 2 or maybe even 3 different, ways of life, different economic ways of life. I don't know, they're interwoven in a way where by the end of the film you understand that they're all the same. They're all suffering because of money, because of tragedy, because of, people suffering and they can't pay for their goddamn bills. And, that's the message of the story, is that greed has a butterfly effect. It affects everybody. And even if you are relating to the businessman's perspective of this film, by the end of it, you're just like, you know what, buddy? You dug your own grave. You sowed your own seeds with this one. You've paved your own road. And I like that about this movie, because ultimately, at the end of the day, greed affects everybody. And, it can have some horrifying ramifications. People can die because of it. People can go out of their mind. And, it can have even bigger waves on society as the whole. So here I am reviewing Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. And the question is, do I think this is better than Old Boy? Well, now I gotta revisit Old Boy. Now I gotta look back at that film and see if this somehow one-ups that movie. Because if you had asked me how I felt about it years ago, I would have said, no contest, Old Boy is better than this movie. Well, tonight, for some reason, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance really struck a chord with me. I was choked up during a number of the scenes. I thought the humor was hilarious and relatable and spot on. There was a couple of moments in the film where I was like, this reminds me of Stanley Kubrick. And then there were other moments where I was like, this reminds me of Steven Spielberg. You watch movies like Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there's a huge element that shows American culture. There's a huge element that shows, average Joes just, living their life, trying to make ends meet, and it's relatable. These are the elements that draw us as an audience into films and make them the greatest films of all time. They're the movies that you reflect upon years later and you say to yourself, that's a damn good movie. Well, I could say that about Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. This is a damn good movie.